A Christmas party in Badagry, Nigeria. A dancer, behind her an atomic explosion, Nevada, 1950. The knock-upper, human alarm clock. This profession existed in England and Ireland during the Industrial Revolution until the 1920s. An inscription on the wall, "Mom, Dad, and I come here every day and wait for you." Signed below, your son, Slava, during World War II, USSR, 1943. A farmer caught a wild pig that was eating his dogs, Australia, 1980. World's largest woman and smallest man, July 1922. Nellie Lane weighed 641 pounds. Clarence Howerton weighed 2 pounds at age 9. Frederick Zugaibe, an American pathologist, conducting research to understand how the crucifixion of Jesus Christ occurred, 1984. Woman demanding the right to vote arrested, 1914. Before retreating from Kuwait in 1991, Iraqi troops, on Saddam Hussein's orders, set fire to about 700 oil wells. Toxic smog hung over the Persian Gulf for nearly a year. Oil rains fell on resorts in Turkey and the UAE. 1 billion barrels of oil burned in the Kuwaiti desert. Moroccan Police Commissioner Mustafa Tabet, at his 1993 trial, accused of raping hundreds of women in the country's worst police corruption scandal. Watching television in a movie theater in the city of Carpi, Italy, 1956. A North Korean propaganda postcard from 1988. The postcard depicts a South Korean defected soldier, his new wife whom he met in the North, and a Volvo car available to any decent North Korean. German prisoners of war tidy up a football field during a break in a match between Moscow and Tbilisi's Dynamo teams. USSR, 1945. In the psychiatric clinic where I was treated, one man thought he was Napoleon and another San Martin. No one believed me that I was Maradona. Diego Maradona, 1994. A Syrian girl in a refugee camp in Turkey. Mistaking the camera for a weapon, she raised her hands. 2012. Hundreds of ships abandoned in San Francisco Bay. Since 1848, thousands of people rushed to California's gold fields hoping to get rich quickly. Parts of many ships were later used to build houses in San Francisco. Japanese troops using POWs as target practice, 1942. The Real Batman, 1892. The photo shows Bill Smith, a butcher who fought off thieves and patrolled the streets of New York at night looking for criminals. A woman cheerfully pours whiskey from her cane, 1922. For 13 years, the U.S. had prohibition, and alcohol was poured out of barrels and mugs during raids. But everyone wanted a drink, including this lady. King Alexander I of Yugoslavia refused to participate in any public events on Tuesdays, as 3 members of his family died on that day of the week. Eventually, he decided to put an end to this silly superstition. On one Tuesday, he made an official visit to Marseille and was shot by a terrorist. Wreckage of the submarine Kursk, Barents Sea, 2000. Restoration of the world's oldest Quran, Cairo, 1993. Between 1971 and 1989, the Aversion Project was implemented in military hospitals in South Africa, which was aimed at eradicating homosexuality. First of all, it is surprising that priests diagnosed the homosexuals. Removing from friends in the 20th century. Many who fell out with friends or relatives would cut their faces out of photos. In 1996 at New Delhi Airport, a Saudi Arabian Airlines Boeing 747 and a Kazakh Il-76 collided. Both flights were on the same route but in opposite directions, and the pilots failed to communicate their intentions in time because they could not speak English. The crash killed 349 passengers and crew. Leather welder's mask, 1930s. Hacker Kevin Mitnick hacked the Pentagon network and Colorado Air Defense at the age of 16. After 5 years in prison, he erased his sentence data from the state registry and emptied the bank account of the judge who sentenced him. A competition for the most elegant cigarette smoking, Paris, 1935. December 1942. A bomb labeled New Year's gift for Hitler. Unemployed man who sold space on his bald head for a sports magazine ad, Hungary, 1939. Italian serial killer Leonarda Cianciulli boiled soap from the fat of her victims. She then distributed these pieces to neighbors and acquaintances. An attack on a grandmother, London, 1954. Wartime improvisation, 1942. Stockings were scarce in World War II, so women painted lines down their legs to fake the look. Artist Marc Monnier draws during the Persian Gulf War, 1991, Kuwait. This cage, known as a Mort safe, appeared in 18th century Scotland. Medical students were digging up graves for practice, so families installed these heavy iron grates to protect their deceased relatives. Police photos of 27-year-old John Wojtowicz, sentenced to 20 years for robbing a bank to pay for a sex change operation for his lover, 1972. In the early 20th century, Tibet levied about 2,000 types of state taxes, including taxes on marriage, childbirth, the right to sing, dance, ring bells, and beat drums. In 1926, Tibet began creating an army and urgently needed money, and since all the usual taxes had already been imposed, the Dalai Lama introduced a tax on ears. North Korean girls sing a song about Kim Il-sung, 1950. Republicans fight Democrats in a snowball fight at the Capitol, USA, 1921. India vaulted from the Middle Ages into the future thanks to the USSR. In 1981, India successfully launched its first satellite from its own soil, but because of a lack of specialized vehicles, the rocket and satellite components had to be transported on bullock carts. An American Marine offers his cigarette to a Japanese soldier who had pretended to be dead for more than 2 days, 1945. Soviet T, 3485 tanks lining up before the Battle of Berlin, 1945. Louis and Lola, survivors of the Titanic. Sea lions are beaten to death with sticks on St. Paul Island, Alaska, 1895. One of the last Tasmanian Aborigines wiped out by British settlers, 1869. Combating cheating during exams, Netherlands, 1950s. Cuban Revolution, 1959. In this photo, the English wizard Alex Sanders, self-proclaimed King of Witches, is initiating a young novice into the mysteries of the magical arts. The wizard placed the naked novice in a circle, then lay on top and recited incantations. Thus, the girl became a witch. Sanders died on April 30th, 1988, after a prolonged battle with lung cancer. Evacuation of residents from Bikini Atoll for nuclear tests, 1946. Mustache cups, United Kingdom, 19th century. The arrangement of a gypsy baron's grave, photo from the 2000s. Let's be friends. This was Adolf Hitler's appeal to the global community, 1936. Teaching Papuans how to use condoms, Papua, Indonesia, 1960s. A Ku Klux Klan member, 1868. Adolf and Rudolf Dassler, brothers, founders of Puma and Adidas. They hated each other so much that they didn't speak until the end of their lives. Unique 1944 photo of the Normandy landing by military cyclists. In 1950, the Ortho Company noticed a drop in demand for ammonium sulfate and decided it was time for a bold change in advertising strategy. The attack on the Prime Minister of India, Rajiv Gandhi, 1987. During Gandhi's official visit to Sri Lanka, one of the soldiers in the honor guard struck him with his rifle butt. Radium mask for treating facial cancer, 1920. Spectacular scene in Tehran, 1972. Carpets drying in the open air, Iran. Margaret Hamilton, lead NASA software engineer for the Apollo program, stands next to the handwritten code that took humanity to the moon in 1969. The meeting of a KKK member's child and a black state trooper, 1992. A hut in the Las Vegas Valley, USA, 1895. In 10 years, Las Vegas will gain city status. In 50 years, gangster Bugsy Siegel will open the Flamingo Casino, the first step towards becoming the gambling capital of the world. In 120 years, Las Vegas's McCarran Airport will serve around 50 million passengers annually. Magician Joe Burris is lowered to a grave in a casket as he prepares to perform a stunt. Burris passed away after the casket collapsed under the weight of the concrete poured on top of it. Soldiers of the Potomac Army fight over a bottle of wine during the Civil War, Virginia, 1863. A diver, after inspecting the interior of the sunken battleship Arizona, the day of the attack on Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941. Afghanistan in 1973 and 2016. The completion of the assembly of the bomb, called Fat Man. It would later be dropped on Nagasaki in 1945. The felling of massive sequoia trees in the USA, early 20th century. An attempt to remove a psychiatric clinic patient from a tree, London, 1895. A ride on the metro, 1990. Reporter interviewing a penguin, 1966. Corporal Shoichi Yokoi hid in the jungles of Guam after Japan's surrender in 1945 and lived there for 28 years. He was found by shrimp fishermen in 1972. His first words upon returning, "It is with much embarrassment that I return alive." Polish athlete Stanisława Wałęsiewicz won the 100-meter race at the 1932 Olympics, setting a world record. Only after her death in 1980, during an autopsy, was it determined by her genitalia that she was male, although she had both male and female sets of chromosomes. A brutal experiment in the U.S. lasting from the 1930s to the 1970s. Over 600 African American workers from Alabama were given placebos and arsenic, despite a known remedy for syphilis. The purpose of the experiment was to observe how African Americans die from syphilis. The 1,000-yard stare, USMC Private Theodore J. Miller, is helped aboard a ship after intense combat on Eniwetok Atoll. Miller was KIA a month later, 1944. The execution of the former Prime Minister of Nazi Hungary, 1946. Replica dog tags of every soldier who never made it back from Vietnam. The first state of Levi's Company, founded by Levi Strauss, 1853. Crime-fighting bicycle, 1948. It was equipped with 13 shotguns and rifles, 2 revolvers, 6 bayonets, and a flare gun. The Last Kiss, 1987. This shot tells a story that seems like the plot of a movie, but it really happened. Pictured is Joyce McKinney, a former beauty queen and winner of the Miss Wyoming pageant in 1973 after her arrest. In 1977, she kidnapped Mormon missionary Kirk Anderson, handcuffed him, and had sex with him for 3 days. The starving winter of 1944, a tragedy for the Dutch people. Typists type blindfolded during a typewriting competition, Paris, 1940. Thousands of Union and Confederate Civil War veterans gathered to honor the memory of the fallen, 1913. Firefighters rest in the rubble of the World Trade Center, New York, USA, September 12, 2001. Cemetery of German soldiers who died near Moscow. The inscription on the plaque on the nearest cross reads, "They rushed to Moscow but ended up in a grave." Acoustic locators from World War I, 1917 to 1940. Chains used on patients in old psychiatric asylums. A doctor examines a Buchenwald prisoner, 1945. Napoleon, the mascot of the French artillery during the Battle of Verdun, France. World War I, 1916. Victorian women who never cut their hair, 1885. Samurai in front of the Sphinx, Egypt, 1864. Refusal of service for Soviet-made Lada cars until the USSR leaves Afghanistan, Canada, 1984. Geronimo, the military leader of the Chiricahua Apache, who led the fight against the U.S. invasion of his tribe's land for 25 years. In 1886, he was forced to surrender to the U.S. Army. A couple watches the launch of the Apollo 8 spacecraft, 1968. A U.S. Marine feeds an orphaned kitten, Korean War, 1953. Children in New Year's costumes. On the right, a boy in the costume of a black person with a ribbon saying "Independence for Africa." Chimpanzee Jiggs shares the boredom of a shooting day with actress Dorothy Lamour, 1938. In 1911, two traveling brothers, Lewis and Temple Abernathy, were offered $10,000 if they rode from New York to San Francisco, 2,796 miles in 60 days. According to the contract, Louis and Temple had to sleep and eat exclusively outdoors. Unfortunately, the brothers didn't win the reward. They arrived in 62 days. Still, it's worth noting, the older one was 11 and the younger one was 7. Thank you for watching this video until the end. I hope these photos impressed you. Some may have made you angry, brought a smile, made you happy, or perhaps even caused some negativity. Feel free to leave your comments and stay tuned for the next part. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Bye.